I'm Emma. I was doing a lot of small, random jobs just to keep myself afloat. I wasn't broke, but rent was always hanging over me, and I was picking up whatever I could: pet sitting, house cleaning, that kind of thing. House sitting was actually one of the better gigs because it usually meant a quiet place, sometimes nicer than my own apartment, and easy money if nothing went wrong. This job came through someone I kind of knew, like a friend of a friend situation. They said this guy needed someone to watch his house for a few days while he was away, and that he didn't want to go through any official service. I didn't think much of that. A lot of people prefer not to. It paid a little more than usual too, which, looking back, should have been the first thing that made me question it, but at the time I was just relieved. I met him once, briefly, to get the keys and instructions. I remember that meeting more now than I did back then. At the time, I just thought he was a bit off. Quiet in a way that didn't feel shy. It's like he was choosing not to say things. He gave me a quick rundown of the house, showed me where everything was, and told me not to worry about anything except keeping the place in order. He mentioned something about not going into one of the upstairs rooms, said it was just storage and kind of messy. Again, I didn't question it. People are weird about their personal spaces. The house itself was a little outside town. It was one of those older houses that had been renovated just enough to be livable, but still felt aged. Like the floors creaked more than they should, even when you stepped lightly. The kind of place where sound travels in strange ways. The first day, I got there in the afternoon, unpacked a small bag, made myself something to eat, and just settled in. That first night, nothing happened. I slept fine. Maybe woke up once or twice, but nothing unusual. The second day, I spent most of it on my laptop, occasionally walking around the house just to stretch my legs. I checked all the doors and windows like I always did when I stayed somewhere new. Everything seemed secure. It was the second night. I was in the kitchen, just rinsing a plate after eating, and I heard something above me. It wasn't like something crashing or falling. It was like a slow sound, like weight moving across wood. I stood there for a second longer than I normally would have, just listening. And it stopped. It just stopped, like whatever made the sound had chosen to. I remember drying my hands and kind of looking up at the ceiling, even though I knew there wasn't anything to see. There wasn't an attic access inside the house, at least not that I had seen. I actually walked around a bit after that, checking stuff in hallways, just out of curiosity, but there was nothing. No pull-down stairs. It was something on the roof. That made enough sense at the time, so I let it go. But later that night, when I was in the living room, I heard it again. This time it was clearer, like steps. Once your brain starts trying to make sense of random sounds, it can turn anything into footsteps if you let it. But this felt spaced out. I muted the TV. That's when it got really quiet again. And then after a few seconds, I heard a door upstairs. The kind where you can hear the hinge just slightly, and then a soft stop. I froze when I heard it. I remember my whole body going kind of stiff, like I didn't want to make any noise in case, I don't know, in case I confirmed something I didn't want to be real. The thing is, I knew I had checked all the rooms earlier, and I hadn't opened any doors since. Everything upstairs had been closed. When I did finally move, it was slow, like I was trying not to draw attention to myself, which doesn't really make sense when you think about it. But in that moment, it felt important. I walked to the base of the stairs and just stood there, looking up. The hallway light upstairs was off, so it was darker up there than where I was standing. I remember the way the shadows sat along the walls, like they weren't moving at all. I went up a few steps so I could see the top of the stairs clearly, and there was nothing there. All the doors looked closed, no movement. I think that's when the unease really started to settle in, that feeling that something wasn't lining up properly. I went back down eventually, but I didn't sit back on the couch. I stayed near the front of the house, closer to the door, without really thinking about why. And then like 5 or 10 minutes later, I can't be exact, I heard something from upstairs again. Not footsteps this time. It was like a shift followed by a thud and silence. At that point, my body was trying to decide whether to ignore it or react. I ended up grabbing my keys and my phone just in case. I walked back toward the stairs, but this time I didn't go up. I just stood there again. And that's when I heard something outside. It was quick, like movement across the roof. That pulled my attention away from the stairs, and I went toward the front window. I don't even know what I expected to see. But when I looked out, I saw the same man who had given me the keys. He was on the roof. It just didn't fit. The idea of him being there at that time, in that position, it didn't make sense. I saw him move. He jumped. He jumped off the side of the roof, and he was completely naked. There was no hesitation in how he moved either. He hit the ground, barely stumbled, and then started running, straight toward the tree line behind the house. I didn't even realize I had stepped back from the window until I felt the wall behind me. My whole body felt cold, like all the blood had just drained out of it. I didn't wait to understand it. I didn't try to rationalize it. I just grabbed my bag, unlocked the door, and left. Once I got to my car, I locked the doors, and before I started the engine, I looked up. I saw him again. He was standing at the edge of the trees, just inside the darkness where the light from the house didn't fully reach. I could still see him clearly enough, though. He wasn't moving. He was standing there, facing me. I don't think I've ever felt fear like that before or since. I started the car and drove. I went straight home. Didn't stop anywhere, didn't call anyone right away. I didn't go back to that house. I didn't even return the keys in person. I left them with the person who had connected us. It wasn't until later, days later, that I heard things about him. Things that made everything sit differently in my mind. I'm not going to say who told me. I don't want to drag anyone else into it. But what I was told, it wasn't rumors. Apparently he had been in prison for something involving a woman. He had kept her locked in a room in that same house. Not for a short time either. Long enough that when she was finally found, it was bad. She survived, but barely. When I heard that, the first thing that came to my mind wasn't even what I saw outside. It was the door upstairs, and the fact that he had told me not to go into one of the rooms. It's weird, because at the time, none of it really felt like something I'd be telling people about years later. So this was a few years ago. I think I was around 20 or 21, and I wasn't really doing much at the time. I had a part-time job, just saving money, nothing serious. And I spent a lot of time helping my friend with his YouTube stuff. He wasn't big, but he was really into filming creepy locations, abandoned places, that kind of thing. I wasn't really into horror like that, but I didn't mind tagging along, mostly because it got me out of the house and I liked messing with cameras and lighting. That night, he wanted to shoot at a cemetery outside town. Just a regular cemetery, but it was pretty big and kind of isolated. There was a thin tree line around most of it, and past that, it just turned into empty land. I remember when he first told me, I hesitated a bit, not because I believed in anything, but just because being in a cemetery at night isn't exactly comfortable. Still, I said yes. We got there around 10. There weren't any streetlights nearby, so once you walked a little away from the entrance, it got really dim. The only real light we had was from the equipment we brought, like this portable light stand he used for filming. Everything was normal. We were just setting up, talking about how he wanted to frame the shots, where to stand, what angles to use. I was holding the light most of the time while he tested the camera. I remember joking about how if anyone saw us, we'd probably look like idiots standing in a cemetery, filming nothing. He laughed, and for a while, it just felt like that. Two guys messing around at night. After 30 or 40 minutes, he realized he forgot something in the car. I think it was an extra battery or some cable. He told me to just stay there and keep the light in place so he wouldn't have to reset everything. I didn't think anything of it. The car wasn't that far, maybe a couple minutes walk. So I'm standing there, kind of in the middle area of the cemetery, but closer to the tree line than the entrance. I had the light pole in my hand, just holding it steady, and I remember looking around a bit, because once he left, it got noticeably quieter. Like, I hadn't realized how much noise we were making until it stopped. I was just standing there, waiting. I checked my phone once or twice, but there wasn't much signal, so I just put it back in my pocket. I remember shifting my weight, looking at the graves, trying not to read the names too much because that always feels weird at night. I heard something. It sounded like I don't know, like a song, but not clear. Like someone humming or chanting, but really low. Like it was coming from a distance or maybe being carried by the wind. I thought it might be my friend messing with me, like he came back and was trying to creep me out. I even kind of smiled, like I was ready to call him out for it. But the sound wasn't coming from behind me where the path was. It was coming from somewhere in front of me, deeper into the cemetery. I remember turning my head slowly, trying to see if anyone was there. The light I was holding only illuminated a small area, so beyond that it was just darkness. I didn't see anything, and that's the part that still confuses me, because the sound kept going, but I couldn't see anyone. I stood there. It wasn't getting louder or closer, just there. And I was thinking, okay, maybe there's someone else here. After a few seconds, I saw something in front of me. It looked like a shape, low to the ground, like something sitting. And I remember squinting a bit, trying to focus, because the lighting was weird and my eyes hadn't fully adjusted to the darkness beyond the light. It looked like someone sitting there. And I don't know why, but the second that thought crossed my mind, everything in my body just kind of froze. I just stared at it. I couldn't make out details. No face, no clothes, just the outline of a person sitting on the ground facing me. The singing, or whatever it was, stopped right around that moment, or maybe I just couldn't hear it anymore because my heart started beating so loud. I think I tried to focus harder, like my eyes were straining to see more clearly, and then everything went black. Not like I passed out because I was still standing. I could feel my body. I could feel the light pole in my hand. I knew I was there, but I couldn't see anything. It was like someone just switched off my vision. That part is still the hardest to explain, even to myself. I didn't feel dizzy beforehand. I didn't feel like I was about to faint. It just happened. I remember gripping the light pole tighter, like that was the only thing keeping me grounded. I tried blinking, rubbing my eyes, but nothing changed. It was just darkness. I don't know how long that lasted. It felt like a few minutes, but it could have been shorter or longer. Time felt really off. I remember trying to call out to my friend, but I don't think any sound came out. My throat felt tight, like I couldn't push anything out. And then, slowly, my vision started coming back, like fading in. Shapes first, then the light, then the outlines of the graves again. The spot where I saw the person was empty. What just happened? My body felt weak, like I had a fever or something. My hands were shaky, and I felt kind of nauseous, but I didn't want to freak out. Maybe I just got lightheaded. My friend came back not long after. He didn't seem to notice anything was off, at least not right away. I didn't tell him what happened. I just said I felt a bit sick, but I could still help. I didn't want to ruin the shoot or sound crazy. We stayed there for a couple more hours, finishing what he needed. I remember feeling off the entire time, like my body wasn't fully there. When we finally left, I was relieved to get out of that place. The car ride back was weird. He was talking about the footage, but I wasn't really listening. That night, I went to bed pretty late. I was exhausted, but also kind of restless. I remember lying there, scrolling on my phone for a bit, then eventually putting it down and trying to sleep. The next thing I remember is waking up suddenly. It was still dark. I didn't know why I woke up. There was no noise. Then I realized I couldn't move. My whole body felt heavy, like it was pinned down. I tried to shift, even just a little, but nothing responded, and I saw someone sitting at the edge of my bed. I didn't turn my head all the way. I could just see it from the corner of my eye. A shape sitting there, facing away or sideways, I couldn't tell. I was like, this isn't real. This has to be sleep paralysis. I had heard about it before, but never experienced it, but it felt too real. I tried to move again, just slightly, and the moment I did, it was gone. Completely gone. No movement, just not there. And right after that, I noticed this weird metallic taste in my mouth, like I had been chewing on something I shouldn't have. It was strong enough that I actually focused on it more than anything else for a second. I tried to call out for my mom, but again, my voice wouldn't come out properly. It was like my throat wasn't working. Panic started to set in at that point. I forced myself to move, slowly, like dragging my body out of bed. My legs felt numb, like they weren't fully mine. I remember holding onto the wall as I moved toward the door. Eventually, I managed to open it and call out. My mom came out of her room, confused. I don't remember explaining it. I just remember saying something wasn't right, that I felt sick, that I couldn't move properly. She helped me back to my room, gave me some medicine, stayed with me until I calmed down a bit. After that, things didn't just go back to normal. I had to go to a doctor, and later some therapy sessions, mostly because I kept feeling like someone was there at night. Not always seeing anything, but feeling it. Like the bed would shift slightly, or there was weight near me. Even now, sometimes when I'm lying down, I get that same feeling. Like someone's sitting just at the edge, just out of view. I don't go to cemeteries anymore, even during the day. And I never really told my friend the full story. I still try to explain it to myself. Maybe my brain just misfired. I was working an average job. I had just started picking up extra shifts because I was trying to save up for a move, and I was feeling kind of stretched thin, like I was always tired, but also constantly thinking about money. I didn't have a car that was reliable enough for long drives, so whenever I needed to go somewhere farther out, I'd usually rely on cheap rentals or whatever I could find online. That's kind of how I ended up at that house in the first place. I only needed somewhere to stay for one night. I had something to take care of the next morning, a few hours away from where I lived, and I didn't want to deal with getting up at like 4 in the morning to make the trip. So I looked for the cheapest option I could find nearby, and there was this small house listed. No reviews, which I remember noticing, but it was really cheap. Like, unusually cheap. That was the first thing I should have paid more attention to. The place itself wasn't in a busy area. It wasn't completely isolated, but it definitely wasn't somewhere you'd pass through by accident. I remember the road getting quieter the closer I got, fewer streetlights, fewer houses close together. When I finally found it, it looked okay enough, I guess. I parked, grabbed my bag, and stood there just kind of taking it in. It was already getting dark, that time of evening where everything looks a little flatter and harder to read. I remember hearing insects, like a steady background noise, and not much else. The key was exactly where the listing said it would be, tucked under a loose brick near the door. That part, at least, was straightforward. I let myself in, and right away I noticed this smell. I remember pausing just inside the doorway, trying to place it. I ended up ignoring it, telling myself it was just because the place had been closed up. Inside, the house was sparsely furnished. A couch that looked like it had been there for years, a small table, a lamp with a yellowish light that didn't really brighten the room as much as it should have. The walls were plain, almost too plain, like nothing personal had ever been there. No photos, no decorations, nothing that made it feel like someone actually lived there. I walked through the place slowly, just out of habit. Kitchen, small bathroom, one bedroom at the end of a short hallway. Everything looked clean enough, just kind of empty in a way that made it hard to get comfortable. It felt more like a place someone had left than a place someone rented out. I was tired, and I didn't feel like overthinking it. I set my bag down in the bedroom, checked my phone, and then I went back out to the main room to eat something small I had brought with me. I kept the TV on. I wasn't really watching it. At the time, nothing felt seriously wrong. Just slightly off in a way that's easy to ignore when you're tired and just want to get through the night. Eventually, I got ready for bed. I remember checking the front door to make sure it was locked, and I think I checked it twice, because I tend to do that anyway. The windows were all closed, curtains drawn. The bedroom itself was simple. Bed, small dresser, a lamp on a nightstand. The light in there was dimmer than the rest of the house, kind of a dull yellow that didn't reach the corners of the room very well. I didn't like that, but again, I ignored it. I closed the bedroom door behind me, not thinking anything of it, and got into bed. I remember lying there for a while, just listening. It was quiet in that way that makes your ears feel like they're trying too hard. At some point, I must have fallen asleep. I don't know how long I had been out when I woke up, but it felt sudden, like something pulled me out of sleep rather than me just waking up naturally. It was so faint I wasn't even sure it was real. A kind of soft, irregular sound, like something shifting against the floor, like fabric or something. I remember holding my breath, just listening harder. It was coming from somewhere outside the bedroom, in the main part of the house. At that point, I told myself it was the house settling or something small falling over. I tried to convince myself of that for a minute or two, but the sound kept happening, and it didn't match anything natural. I got out of bed. I moved slowly, trying not to make noise, and went to the bedroom door. I remember reaching for the handle and feeling, not scared, but uneasy. I turned the handle. It didn't move. I thought I just hadn't turned it properly, so I tried again. The handle moved slightly, but the door didn't open. That's when it really hit me. It wasn't jammed. It felt like it was locked. From the outside, I hadn't locked it. There wasn't even a lock on the inside that I had used, and yet it wouldn't open. I was saying, "Hello?" The sound outside continued. That same dragging, shifting noise, like someone was moving something across the floor, or maybe just moving themselves. I spoke again, asking who was there. Still nothing. Just that same low, unsettling movement. At that point, my mind was trying to come up with explanations, but none of them made sense. I hadn't heard anyone enter. The doors had been locked, and yet someone was clearly inside. I stayed by the door, listening. The sound changed slightly, like whatever or whoever it was had moved closer. It didn't sound like walking. It sounded lower, closer to the ground, like something crawling or lying down and shifting. I started to feel something I can't really describe properly. Not just fear, but this deep, instinctive sense that something wasn't right in a way I couldn't fix by just opening the door and confronting it. The movement stopped then, completely. I heard something right outside the door. A presence. Like someone standing there, close enough that if they moved even slightly, I would hear it. I could feel it through the door, if that makes sense. Like someone was right there, listening. I didn't say anything this time, just stood there. A few seconds passed, then I heard a soft shift, like weight moving away, and what sounded like footsteps, normal ones this time, walking away down the hallway. Then very quietly a click. I waited a moment before trying the handle again. This time it opened. I didn't swing the door open, just pulled it slightly, peeking into the hallway. It was empty, completely still. I stepped out slowly, looking toward the main room. Nothing, but the smell, it was stronger now. That same strange, unplaceable smell from earlier, but heavier, like it had spread through the entire house. It wasn't just stale anymore. There was something else mixed into it, something that made my stomach turn slightly, even though I couldn't identify it. I checked the front door. No windows open, and yet everything felt wrong. I didn't think about it for long. I just knew I needed to leave. I went back into the bedroom, grabbed my bag as quickly as I could without making too much noise, and headed straight for the front door. Didn't even close the door behind me properly. Just got into my car, locked it, and sat there, trying to calm down enough to drive. I didn't call the police. At the time, it didn't even feel like an option. I just wanted to get as far away from that place as possible. I never went back. I didn't try to get my money back. I didn't contact whoever owned the place. I just left it alone completely. I don't know what happened in that house. I've gone over it so many times in my head, trying to find some kind of explanation that makes sense, but nothing ever fully fits. The locked door, the sounds, the way it felt like someone was right there listening, it all just sits in this place in my memory that I can't really organize into something logical. And that smell, I've never smelled anything like it before or since.